Hello, this is SIG Release, February 12th. So I actually updated the agenda with the, I'll just share the agenda actually. Okay. Are you able to see the screen?
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. So yeah, I think one of the agenda items for today's meeting is to do the release retrospective. I have a few points, and obviously, let's hear from everyone in the community, and let's I'll make a note of those things in the documentation. So this is instead of running a little bit structure level, let's make it a little bit free flowing in terms of what do we think, like that needs mainly improvement. I had a few things noted. That's what I was thinking from the retrospective perspective in terms of release processes, in terms of community development, documentation, etc. So other than that, before we start that, is there any other important agenda item that we need to discuss? I know Fiacra added a comment here. Use GitHub Actions to run end-to-end tests on GCP runner. So that's also part of the release process. I think probably we can discuss it as a part of retrospective as well. I'll just note it down here. Use actions.
We can postpone. I have a working example to show, and we can postpone for next week if
Okay.
we don't have time. But
Okay,
yeah, I have an example to show. Yeah.
cool. Thanks, Fiacra. That's really awesome. So so if there are no other things, we can delve into this one. How do we actually, when I'm presenting, I'm not able to see the Zoom screen. So probably you can raise your hand and talk about what do we think we should improve. Before that, do you think it's helpful if I just say these items that I noted to the team here? Do you think that's helpful, or we should just hear the opinion from the members?
I think that is okay. I mean, we can start with that ones and maybe.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So let me just give, this is a little bit of notes I made from our release meetings that we have. So we need to, the release process itself, we did some progress in R2. For example, the way we had to tag especially the catalog, all others were okay, but especially the way we had to tag the catalog repository, and then we need to go, how we needed to go back and forth in terms of, to explain that, for example, right? So for Porsche to recognize the individual packages of a particular version, we needed to tag individual packages with a particular convention with a version that is coming at the end of it. So if you see, and if you go and see our catalog repo, if you see, look at the number of tags in the catalog repo that ends with 2.0.0, you probably that will give an idea. So we needed to tag that, and then we needed to do that manually. But thanks to Tall, he came up with an automation script there, and then it's at this point of time, he already checked into the test infra. So I think that should alleviate some of our processes. But overall, I think from a release tagging perspective, we should have a automation that by just running which it should tag the repos the way we want, including the catalog repos. And then the other thing that we saw was when we made the release, we had to not only tag the repos, we had to change the contents of all the catalogs, obviously, right? So basically, if you look at the version it's going to pick, most likely on the development thing, it will only pick the latest or main. And then we needed to pick it a particular, all our catalog should pick a particular version for a release. So we needed to change all of them individually. So here, when I say release tagging, then I think I also mean automation for changing the catalog files themselves. So it would be really great if there is an automation where there is a JSON or YAML file where we specify just one version and then run the release job or something, then it will automatically go change everything in the catalog files with that version, and then tag the catalog repos with all those things, and then obviously tag the other repos. Tagging the other repos are the simplest one. I think Rado already got it. So I think that's one of the main things from the release perspective that we have. I know it is needed irrespective of whether we go with the stable branch strategy or we continue to go with main and tagging particular commit for a release. So what do you guys think on that?
So let me speak a little bit to it. So there is already in place most of it things that you were mentioning. It's in a test infra tools /release. Basically what it needs to have, it needs to have the TALS script for creating tags on catalog repo incorporated, and it's pretty much complete. Just after the release, I've added some functionality. So for the repositories that build images, it goes sequentially, not all of them at the one time. Because what we have, like the major failure here, during the automated release was that actually we didn't have enough resources in browse cluster to accommodate all the builds at the same time. So a few pods were actually not created, and it had to be rerun manually. So that's the thing, but it just needs not that much work, and I plan to polish it in the next weeks or a week or two.
Okay, probably in terms of action item, let's just note down the action item. Probably will we are, oh man, what is this? To make the release process to release repos sequentially, right?
That's done.
Yeah, and then
that's already done. Only thing that's left is to make the changes on catalog repo, and
then the automation basically you're saying that automation should call the catalog, should invoke the catalog tagging script, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. So but if you see, Rado, I also wanted to automate, I don't know whether it's already covered. I also wanted to automate, you see, we had to merge. So basically Sagar had to change the contents of all the
packages. Yeah, yes. The functionality is also in place.
But I wanted to automate that as well. Just run one script that will go to the catalog and changes everything.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, it is.
That one we don't have, isn't it?
We do.
We do.
So Yeah, so the previously, well, we have a version for the previously when it was in split in few repos like Nefio packages, Nefio example packages, and Free5GC packages. But actually, it was the same to switch the version in package itself. It's pretty rudimentary. It just replaces the string, so like v100 with v200 or something. Probably we can think of like better ways to do it. So maybe to keep the packages as a templates in repository and then generate the package files from them automatically. This would actually ease up the whole process. I mean, it's up for discussion. So the basic functionality in release script is in place to switch on any repo. Basically, it doesn't have to be a catalog. It has a functionality to replace the one string with the other along with the process.
Okay, thanks, Tado. The way I was thinking was for this particular thing, like there's a YAML file where it says version, right? So version say, let's say when we do the 3.2.2, and then when you run the script, like let's say we have a script like catalog version script or something, it will just go read that version from the input YAML file, which is 3.2.2, and then goes to every catalog, every package in the catalog repo recursively, and then it will change if it is main or anything. If the version says main or anything, it will change that. Do we? I mean, we are very close to that.
It is in place. It is in place. If you go to the test infra tools release, there is a config JSON file there where you can specify. Actually, you can specify different versions for different components if that's ever needed. Yeah, tools release here. Yeah. This one on the bottom one. Yeah. So you have your config with specified repositories, which images they produce. So it's waiting for until the tagged images are created. I mean, it's pretty ugly. It was just quickly created, so it can be pulled out to variable. But in a case, if you need for some reason a different version for some component, it can be also specified, like here manually for every.
Okay, so if that's the reason, I'm slightly confused. Maybe why did we need Sagas PR specifically for this? If we could do it automatically.
We didn't use it at this point. I wasn't sure like what changes we need in catalog. It was pretty new at the point, so we've relied on the Saga expertise to change it.
Okay, so probably we have to make sure it works, it tested, things like that. We could do that, right?
Yeah, that's something that wasn't tested.
Okay, cool.
Much,
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lado. I think it looks like all my wish list you're already covering. So thank you so much. I think, but let me just make a note so that we can create a GitHub issue and then we can make it a
right. Yeah. That's it. Still needs a lot of work. So so I guess
for the image tagging, I think it's already covered. I think images will be tagged when you run a release process. We are covering that.
Right. That's in Prow. So that's also automatically when you create the tag or branch.
Yeah. So now I wanted to talk about a little bit more about I wanted to talk about end-to-end testing, but team, is there anything in this particular area that anyone wants to ask a question?
There are a few hands up.
Oh, sorry, I cannot see. Sorry, I cannot. When I'm sharing, I'm not able to see. Probably, can someone handle the hands, please?
Maybe I'll do it. Tal was first, then I see Victor also has a hand raise.
Cool.
Yeah. So related to the tagging, so as you mentioned, Bala, we need to not just tag but also change the content, and there are two ways we change the content. Right? During development, we want everything to use the latest version, right?
Yeah.
But when we tag, we want all the versions locked. But very ridiculously, when we do that, we tag, but then we change it back, right? Which is silly, right? And it's not only for the catalog, but also for our documentation, right? In our documentation, we also sometimes mention using specific versions.
Yeah.
And when we go back to development, we want the documentation to be development, quote unquote, documentation, right? So if developers work, they'll also be using latest and not, using an old tag, because that would actually break, right? Because the development has already moved forward.
Yeah.
So you need to use latest images, right? So for these reasons, because we changed the content back and forth, which is, I think, kind of ridiculous, I really think we need a stable branch for any repo. So at least for catalog and docs, right? So those two repos are the ones that the contents change.
Okay.
So the idea being is that every time we cut a release, we update the stable branch and tag it on that branch, right? But the main branch stays with latest, right? So during our process, it's not just tagging. First, we update the branch, we tag, and yeah, so we never have to change things back and forth, right? We only change the stable branch.
Okay. So essentially, you're suggesting that, for example, if I had to just to reiterate my understanding, let's take the example of catalog. So at the time of 3.0.0, for example, so we will cut a branch called, say, 3.0.0, and then within that branch, we will tag it as 3.0.0 for that particular thing, and then
right,
we will change
after updating the content too, right? So you run my script, you do the documentation fixes or whatever.
Yeah.
You make sure that everything has locked versions.
Yeah.
And you commit that and tag that.
Tag
right?
that,
But
and then
you're
in
tagging
the
it in the stable
catalog files, we need to make sure along with updating the version, we have to make sure that it is pointing to the branch rather than main.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. I personally like that idea.
So I would actually expand it and go a step forward and do that for all our repos. Why? Because every repo includes documentation. It has at least a README, sometimes more than just a README, if it has some examples or things like that. So those READMEs might also have to be updated with versions, right? If they include some reference. So I think just to make it very easy, if all our repos have a stable branch, then we can just have the same process for all the repos in terms of tagging.
Yeah, I like the idea. I like the idea. Basically, you're suggesting we are developing on main, and when the release time comes, whenever that is, we will create a stable branch, we'll create a tag, and make sure all our catalog is pointing to that branch and that tag, and then main will continue as it is.
Yes, and I see Victor just shared a link that kind of, I didn't look at it, but it might give us a good description for the process. So maybe you can also add it to the action items here as a reference.
Honestly, in all the projects I've worked on so far in my life, I've done the exact same thing what you said.
Right. So we're grown up now, and I think we really need that because it's very painful to change back and forth, and actually wrong and can introduce errors, right? Because you have kind of during release, you have a moment where you actually shouldn't do anything because it'll be broken. So it also makes things very easy for users, right? Because they can just change to the stable branch and they know they're looking at the latest stable.
Yeah.
And yeah, it might even help the documentation generation, but that's a separate issue we can talk about.
Yeah. So I agree with it. Team, anyone has any particular concerns or any other ideas on this one? Rado, Victor, Wing,
well,
I don't know who is on the call. I can't see.
That's fine. So I think eventually with that particular strategy, which is, I mean, I'm totally supported, we have to also eventually say which are the number of branches that we are going to support. But yeah, it's a future
So basically,
problem.
okay, basically you're saying that support strategy for.
Well, our support strategy is only stable, right? Because current development is never quote unquote supported. Not that we really offer much support as a community, but people ask questions and everything, and let's say somebody tries to run current dev and things break and they're confused. So we tell them, please use the stable branch if you want to make sure for stability, because we can't guarantee stability for main. Yeah.
Exactly. And at one point, we'll have companies also relying on the stability of a product. We have to have branches to keep.
Well,
basically, like you know,
they don't absolutely need to use the branches because they can use the tag, right? If you're using stability, you can use just v200 tag everywhere. That would also work. You don't need to use a branch, but
right. But like
Yeah.
for let's say security patches, right? So we have some nastiness going on in one of the images in version 3, 4, 5, whatever. Then it has to be applied as a fix to the branch.
Well, not just a fix to the
particular
branch, we
version.
probably also need to cut a fix release, right? So users
Yep.
should not be using branches per se. They should be using tags. They don't care which branch it's on, right, necessarily. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I see two raised hands. I'll yield the floor in a minute. So what it means rather for us is we need to change our automation. If there's no objection, then we need to change our automation to create a branch for release as a release process, then tag it. I think it's a simple thing. I think the only other thing that we need to do is that automation for changing the catalog versions of the catalog files. We also need to update that. Now we need to update that script to not only point to the tag, but also needs to make sure that everything is pointed to the main branch right now. We have to make sure that it points to the right branch. So I think, again, that will not be a huge thing to do.
Yeah.
Since we already have it. So I think
Just to be clear, Bala, it's not that every time we release, we create a new branch. We just have a constant branch called stable. That's my idea.
For every repo we have a branch called stable.
That's slightly different understanding from what I was thinking. Now that you said that, I was thinking we will cut a branch for release and then we'll have multiple branches for every release.
I know. That might be something that we can discuss. That's also a possibility. So you'll have a 2.0, an R2 branch, right, which has all the tags for R2, and then an R3 branch, which has all the tags for R3.
Yeah.
I think that's could be overkill and maybe unnecessary, right? Because I mean, in the future, well, it's open to discussion, right? Because here's the thing, like a security patch. Let's say we need to do a security patch right now, and we have R1, R2, R3.
Yeah.
So the question is, do we backport it both to R3 and R2 in their separate branches, or do we ignore R2? I think as a project where we're not at a point where we support older releases.
Yeah.
And we might never be, really. So we only support the latest release. So, expect security patches for R3 and not for R2, right? But it's worth talking about that because whatever we do now would be for the future as well. So it might make more sense to have a different branch for release so that in the future, let's say there's a company using R2 and we're in R4.
Yeah.
Right. And the company is using R2 right now. It didn't upgrade. So we're saying, we also want to backport a security patch for R2. We might, for example, we might want to release version 2.0.1 and 3.0.1 at the same time, right, to support previous versions. So that might be worth doing as well. So I think it's something worth discussing, but we might be talking too much about this topic right now in the retrospective. I suggest having a separate meeting for a branching strategy.
Okay. Yes, let's do that. I think if you're doing, we should go all the way, just for the reasons that you suggested, Tal, and also some other patches other than the security. We can do some bug fixes, whatever, and depending on what the TSC would say in terms of support strategy, etc. But like you said, we can discuss that. But overall, we are in agreement. So Vish and Victor, I don't know who was first.
I think Victor was first.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Vish. Well, one thing that I was thinking about it is, well, we have multiple references, especially when we are using a package variant and package variant sets. So I know that in the catalog we have several resources pointing each other, especially what was the name? I guess Nephew Work Cluster is one of them, which has multiple package variant set or package variants. But the other is like we have another resources in Test Infra, which has these kind of resources. So one possibility is just to move all those resources. I'm talking about the package variants that are in the Test Infra project and move it to maybe in the catalog to have everything centralized. and have better control. Like, I guess that could be one possibility, or start using templates, or like, I don't know.
So you're saying move packages in the test infra
The
to the catalog.
the package variants.
Yeah. I mean, basically, yeah, overall.
I can give you some examples of the things that we have there, and that could be one possibility to start, yeah, externalizing those things.
I'm okay with that. So is there any disadvantages in doing that? I mean, I can see the advantage. Everything is central, and it's something that changes. But is it gonna?
Well, the only disadvantage could be like we are going to rely on being able to reach those resources externally. Like, I mean, especially when you are depending of external resources, everything could be happening in the network, like not able to reach the file or whatever. But yeah, it's something that it is happening. I mean, especially when there are network glitches, like if you cannot reach the package definition, basically you get an error instead of having locally.
Okay. So how common is that, or is it something to be wary of at all?
I see more often in another places, like using, I mean, installing, I don't know, distro packages or things like that. I mean, binaries or things like that, than reaching GitHub resources. So I think in that sense is minimal the risk, I guess.
Okay. So anyone else who doesn't want to do this, any particular opinion? But what Terry suggests?
Well, let me chime in here. I mean, I'm sorry I joined about like 8 minutes late. I thought it was about an hour later. So I got 2 invites on the calendar. So, but so that we can all others can get context, is this also a good topic to be actually in the discussion topic, a GitHub discussion topic? Because some of us might want to contribute and want to understand, and then maybe make some suggestions. Maybe the folks very much involved, like Rado and who are involved in the release process, are aware of it. But for sake of spreading the knowledge, it might also be a good idea to bring this up in the GitHub discussion so that it gets captured and we're able to see it and add to it.
Sure, good idea.
That was my point. So nothing else. In general, for some of the topics, which actually, some of you are very much involved and you want others to contribute, it might be a good idea to be part of GitHub discussions, what I personally feel. But if it doesn't make sense, it's fine too.
Cool. Thanks. By the way, welcome back, Vish. Thank you. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, by the way, Bella, I had a similar comment. I mean, we hard coded those versions, but there is no point. We could parameterize those versions, right?
Yes, in the catalog, right? You mean?
Yeah, I mean, see, if we can vary any variable, then why can we not vary the version, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, actually, that's the point 3.
Because for me, that's the right way forward here, because we are. So it's very. I think we should make that whole system a bit more flexible. And
absolutely. So
that would help a lot, because then you can define from the top which revisions you want, and then it propagates to the whole chain, right?
Absolutely. So is it different from number 3 that I highlighted?
I mean, it's the way to do it, right? So one is what you could do is offline run a script and updates all the versions. What I'm trying to say is that we are using the system in a very static way. We should use the system by parameterizing the revisions that you use to select the proper images, right? So, and as such, the only thing that matters is what you enter at the top, right?
Yes.
So it's a different way of achieving it. So what I understand right now is that what we are doing is we are basically having a script that updates everything, but that's you use a static definition and you run a script to make it to align the static versions. What I'm trying to say is you parameterize the versions, the revisions, and then you propagate those values from the top that you are selecting, right? And as a result, you can basically select anything.
So, Wim, the one issue with that is catalog, because we use GitOps, right?
No.
So it means sometimes we just refer exactly to the raw image, right? So with your
No, but
suggestion,
what I'm trying to say,
okay.
what I'm trying to say is that the reference to the image is not hard coded. It's parameterized.
Right. You know, there was a suggestion very early on, like a year ago, that we would have a kept function that actually update the image versions, right, in some way. And exactly that, we can somehow parameterize that. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what I'm suggesting. That's much more flexible.
It is. We can go back to that discussion. I think I remember there were various issues with that, right? Because, yeah, it's like there might be a default version, because it means you have to provide that as an input, but it might have a default, right? So the question is, what should the default be, maybe? So, yeah, I think, you know, I think we're devoting a lot of time to this right now. I think Vish is right. We can open a GitHub discussion and maybe give all the potential options to solve this. Like, I think there's an advantage to having the catalog just ready without, but again, it could have a default value and you can optionally put in, so it makes sense for during development to insert. So my point is that the default should be the latest tag, like v200.
But even so for me, I just look at, just look in general, right? Why should, at the end of the day, you could have multiple versions, right? So even someone would be able to select whatever he wants, right?
Well,
So
let's say,
if we go with the say if we go with the branching strategy, right? The way my mental math is something like this, Wim. So we are on trunk or main, right? At this point of time. So everything is pointing to main. So including the catalog and everything. And then let's say the release time comes. In my view, we should cut a branch for the release. So if we cut a branch for the release, let's say 3.0.0, at
that's
which point of time,
right? That's a different. Cutting a branch is a different thing than the catalog in my view. But sorry.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. So at which point of time, along with any other repos, catalog will also be cut. So as a part of a release process automation, what I was thinking is it will go ahead, create all the branches for all the repos, and it will create special tags for catalog, because catalog requires a tag for each package. And at the same time, it will go and update the contents of the catalog, all the catalog files from main to 3.0 as a part of that.
And the latter part, I have a challenge with, because if you do just tag the images, why can our, let's say, release thing that says, okay, I want these versions of each of these packages, and then use them without updating its content?
So when you say these versions, so when you do a release, when you do a release.
So at the top, you basically said this release uses these tags, right? And here you put them into the system at the top. So when you consume it, you basically, they select the right ones for that particular release, rather than updating all the packages.
But how do you, without updating the package file, how do we know?
You propagate the value, you update the value based on the top level that you enter. So you basically have an entry file that says, okay, for UA, the OAI, I use version 5, right? Okay, it propagates version 5. But let's maybe discuss it on the GitHub action if we take too much time. But see, we propagate a cluster name, right? Think of it as the same thing to propagate a version for a particular entity.
So
we can propagate the name of a cluster, we can propagate the name of a version, right?
So are you saying that, just to understand, are you saying that you want to do it as a part of specialization?
See, we have both. We have today functions. So if you look to apply replacements and stuff like that, right? So there is a set of functions that we already have that are very generic, that we have been using to, for example, propagate cluster names and stuff like that, right? I would think, I mean, we have to look into the details to see, can we not use, either we make a new cat function, right, which is an option as well, but, or we use whatever is already there, and we just consume it in a way to propagate, to basically propagate the revisions.
Okay, I see what you mean. Okay, probably, yeah, we should discuss that, this thing. We should discuss that strategy as well. Thanks, Wim. Now that I understand that, at least probably others got it, but I didn't get it. Now I get what you're saying. Yeah. So we should discuss that. That is one way, having a release branch and then having it as part of release process is another way. So probably, but anyway, we know that we need some change. We all agree to that.
Both, I think, because for documentation, we need a stable branch as well. So
yes.
I don't, yeah. So there are multiple reasons we need a stable branch.
No, branching is definitely
stable branches. I agree with Tal. That's a for me. It's orthogonal to this
yes,
conversation somehow,
absolutely.
right? So the stable branch is yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Stable branch we definitely need. I think we all agree on that. In my view, we should do it. We should cut the branch for every release instead of just stable. Probably we can do that discussion at all. But this one is, he's saying how we propagate the versions. So one philosophy is you can do it as a part of a release process automation. The other version, that's what we were suggesting. That's what number 3 is. And Wim is suggesting, why don't we just do it as a part of the release tagging, not the release tagging, image tagging as a part of specialization. So that is that.
My only question that I still had, the second question when I raised my hand, was when we cut the stable branch.
Yeah.
How are we doing it? Do we take a cut of main and start preparing it, or how do we prepare the stable branch? Do we have to commit to both branches, or how are we going to handle that?
The way I'm thinking is, in my view, we are working off of main branch all the time. So let's say tomorrow we are cutting a release. So we'll just take the state of main branch and then create a branch off of that and tag it. So you don't need to check into both the places unless let's say we made the release and we made the release and says tomorrow you want to have a patch, and then let's say you want to apply it to both main and that branch, then you need to push into both places after the release.
Yeah, for sure. So from the moment you have it, but yeah, so, but then I also, for example, if you use the same stable branch, let's say we have V2, right? I don't know whether we want to do it. That goes back to Tal's question before. Let's say we have a V2, you want to do 3. Let's say you use the same stable branch. So you start basically now at some point your tag V2 is there. You take a copy of main and then you start stable branch to start preparing for the V3. If you have now a fix for V2 that you need to submit, you have to cut another branch, right? That's the disadvantage of having a single stable, in my view.
Yes, I think in my view, we should have one for each release.
Hey guys, again, we're too much on this topic. If you want to do a retrospective, there's probably other items we should discuss.
Yeah, I think that's okay, Tal. I think if you want, we can even continue. I think this is an important thing that we need to do. This is one of the pain points that we had, and it's okay to spend time, in my view, because as we noted, I mean, the release process, this is okay. I think at least in the next release meeting, let's discuss whether have to one single stable branch versus one branch for each release. So let me just make a note down. One branch, and then we'll move on. Okay, that's that. Thank you. It's a nice discussion. Thanks, everyone. So one other topic I wanted to discuss probably was this test automation. Few things in test automation. So Rado, for example, today, right? Today somebody fix, just for the benefit of everyone, let's say today somebody creates a PR into the Nephio, Nephio repo, and then they will check in the code, and then let's say, does the end-to-end test run? If so, when exactly when it runs? I mean, when the PR is about to be merged, or what's the process? Or it does it not run at all for the end-to-end test?
It does not run for a PRs yet.
Okay.
I have to revert the changes when we were doing the release. It seems a bit too much to produce all the images for well, basically for every repo at the same time.
Yeah.
This has to be either offloaded to some other services, so like Google Build, for example, which is I've over the weekend I've done some investigation about this, and also about some better way of keeping the secrets. So it's not that expensive to use the Google Cloud platform services. For it, I will try to make some proof of concept thing there to present. Then we could have jobs that will create images outside of our infrastructure and then use them for tests. Otherwise, we'll have to expand our infrastructure, which will be more costly to keep on permanently on VMs to keep our Prow cluster in bigger capacity. So it looks like it will be more beneficial to just build offload building images to some other place. And for the automation of doing those tests per PR, there were also some problems with what I've got. I've only tested this here in my infrastructure. So before the release, I've decided not to push it. So it will basically not have negative impact on the development process, since many things were we had to fix it basically just before the release. So yeah, but I mean, it's still in the process, still not done.
Okay, thanks. I think we have two raised hands, Victor and Fiacre. Victor, I think you were first.
Yep. Well, I mean, probably Fiacre is going to mention a little bit about the same, because we were discussing several things. One of them could be in the test infra. We have several Ansible roles that maybe we can extract them and use them in another repos. So that, for example, we have the installer, so maybe we can reuse installer in multiple places, and we don't have to rely too much in that place. And maybe in that way we can also run certain portion of the integration test in the repos, like probably that can facilitate the execution of this running on every PR, like a kind of portion of the integration test. And the other thing is about the having like a pre-bake images that we can use it. Probably I can also expand that topic, because he mentioned that he has been working on a particular thing. So, well, just in conclusion, one possibility, maybe to put in the minutes, could be exporting some Ansible playbooks that we have in test infra. I guess that's a good way to improve it, the test automation.
Yeah, Fiacre, please go ahead. Thanks, Victor.
Yeah, so similar to what Fikra was saying, but I guess there's a lot of there's probably a lot of not improvements, but streamlining that could be done on the CI kind of end to end. But I guess running end to end for every PR is a non-runner.
Okay.
Excuse the pun, because it's up to an hour and a half now full to run the end to end.
Yeah,
So
that's another thing.
yeah, so what I could probably move it to the SIG automation on Wednesday, but I have a working example where essentially there's lots of fancy stuff we can do in terms of using Google Cloud and Terraform and GitHub Actions and stuff like that to have to spin up GitHub runners on demand. The GitHub runners, the free tier, they're not big enough to use for us to use, so you'd have to use some backend the self-hosted runners. But essentially, so my objective was to slim down the sandbox as much as possible. I didn't really get very far on that. I would probably need some advice from the people who know what's needed, but in particular for testing the nephew operator controller, say in isolation. So for that project, for that repo alone, you could trigger a local CI loop for just to test the say for the nephew operators alone. So, bring up a sandbox and provision a couple of clusters and maybe do some networking. And obviously swap out the images. So you'd have to build the Docker images as part of the run, and swap those out on the sandbox environment, and then to run your tests. But that ideally that would run 10 minutes, 15 minutes max.
Yeah, that's more palatable. 10 to 15.
Yeah, that's so you have a fast failure, fast loop locally, and then you would run your end to end nightly, say. So
Okay.
you're or whatever nightly, or depending on whatever part of the world you're in, but so you'd run your long loop, if you like, daily.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying, with the latest images from each project? Like, that's kind of where I was coming from. But yeah, I think there's in terms of there's a debate around Prow versus GitHub Actions as well, which I won't go into here. But I think the running end to end on every PR, I don't think is feasible in its current state.
Okay. Yeah. And then, yeah, that's what I thought too. So I think, Rado, I think we have a periodic job, right, for the end to end.
Yeah, we have to actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think if on demand, I think if you can put a PR onto the test infra report to run it. That's my understanding at this point of time, right? Right, Rado?
You can force
Force
the
a run.
CI
You can force a run, and
to
then do that.
run, yeah.
Okay.
But
And then
that won't pick up any of that won't pick any the latest porch image, the latest nephew operator image, etc. So it'll just run what's on test infra at that present time. Unless you give it a tag or sorry. Yeah.
You would have to alter the test infra as a PR, then it will run the end to end against your changes. Yeah, so in this way you could basically force it. But then again, you have to have, for example, the new set of images built to test them. Like if you made, let's say, change to one of the repos that produce them.
Yeah.
So this was in place, but it was actually too much for our Prow. So I'll be working towards to have this offloaded to some either other infrastructure, not to put too much strain on Prow, since it's doing also a lot of other important things, or just to basically run it in something as a service. So us having the Google Cloud project available, I guess the first thing would be to check the Google build service there.
Yeah, I would just finally, but in terms of if we have unlimited GCP resources, I would very, very much support moving towards using GitHub Actions and having runners on demand in GCP. It looks I set it up locally using Terraform and a private GitHub GCP service, but there are lots of nice things there as well that we could set up very, very quickly. I don't know if Prow has to stay. I'm not, but I would strongly advocate using GitHub Actions and GCP runners for.
They are not mutually exclusive. So we will still need Prow to manage other things like merging and to keep order in the repositories and apply the policies there and stuff like this. But for some more demanding CI jobs, I'm all for using other solutions. I like the idea of GitHub Actions connected with external runner, since we have, it's not unlimited, but we have resources available on GCP. So I like that solution a lot.
Yeah, no, it looks like you can set it up fairly easily to have, you know, ephemeral runners that will just run, you know, on demand.
Yeah.
And can scale and stuff, and you can use GKE. I don't know if we can use GKE as a kind of a scalable runner solution either, but yeah, it looks quite nice. Yeah.
Cool.
The
Thanks.
solution
Yeah, go ahead,
for solution for spinning up VMs on demand with Terraform is already in place. We're using it, so it's just a matter of tuning the solution to have it run as a GitHub runner. So that's that's pretty cool to have. Yeah.
Cool, thanks. I think yeah, let's definitely consider that. You know, like local runners. You know, subscope test. You know, and the end-to-end test runs periodically, like Fiacre and Rado mentioned. So Rando, the end-to-end test, the periodic job, sorry, that will pick up everything latest. Is that right or no?
Yeah, whatever's configured in test infra. So right now it's pointing to main. Yeah.
Okay.
Or is it not? Or was it? No, the test we've done was it was done on a PR, right? So the tags and stuff was changed there. Yeah. So the periodics are intact, so they're pointing to main or the latest. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you. So that's that, and obviously we know that we need to do some work there. Fiacre will be looking forward to that POC. So there is one big item about community development that I briefly discussed with Tal. Probably will not get to that. But even in the test automation itself, I had one point to ask the community here, because rest everything we have covered. Image tagging is covered because right now it's part of a release job, and the documentation issue, it's also resolved. Gergely has set it up. Tal and I worked with him. So now all those logistical issues are resolved, and also I think they have put a PR. Actually, it's already merged. That will make the links work both in GitHub as well as in Netlify. So I think that was one of the issues that we had for because the links did not work. Either it could only work in either in the Hugo or in GitHub. I think that has been fixed. I think so. We are good there. Documentation issues resolved, and also we have the redirect also set up now. Thank you, Tal, for taking that up. So community development is a slightly bigger topic. We may not get into this one. So I just have one more point on the test automation. Do you think right now test automation, I know there are shell scripts and inside maybe some Ansible playbook and stuff. So do you think time has come for us to invest in a real integration test framework? Something like Robo. I'm not suggesting we need to use Robo, but something like Robo framework, which is actually an integration test framework that can run end-to-end tests. You know, so all the tests looks uniform. All the tests are, or something like Python or anything like that. I just made one example, Robo, which is based off of Python. I'm okay with any choice. I'm actually looking forward to some choices. So main question is, should we make the investment to move to a real test framework for end-to-end testing and integration testing?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm in favor of that decision as long as we find an interesting fit.
Okay, when you say interesting fit, what do you mean?
Oh, well, you mentioned robot as a Python example. Maybe
Yeah.
we can find something for Neat.
Okay, Vish, you had saying
Yeah,
something.
there are also some opportunities within, where you can still run integration tests. If it's related to Go code, you can use containers. I mean, in the past, I've actually had integration tests where I had an API and I had a database, and I use Podman and Docker Compose, for example, to invoke tests. So in addition to what you're proposing, so there might be some opportunities like that where we should try to use some the native usage for that language in addition to what you're saying. So yes to your question, and also adding that we should also look into what can also be used natively as well in Golang wherever possible.
Yeah, I mean, just to let you know, Vish, I take your this thing with a good spirit, but at this point of time, Nephew has both Python and because all the OAI operators, they were written in Python.
That's fine. You can still
Yeah.
actually run some of them as containers.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that it's not just Golang at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I think the big thing is, should we move into that? Obviously, we need to find people who could work on that. So I have seen robot being used previously. It's a keyword based test automation framework based off of Python. Anybody knows what Kubernetes uses?
Yeah, Bala, we're out of time. The SIG one meeting is beginning now. This seems like a big topic.
Yes. Thank you. So just one question last, and if anybody knows, do we know what integration test framework that Kubernetes uses?
They have their own solution. Don't remember the name now, but
Okay.
it was probably it's called end-to-end framework or something like this. Let me just quickly.
Okay, probably we
But
can discuss that on Slack.
That's
Yeah, we can do that on Slack.
that's what it is. Yeah, it's called end-to-end framework.
yeah,
I'll
Kubernetes. It's
put it in the
Kubernetes
chat.
testing. It's at Kubernetes level though. It's not at so that's what I was going to suggest, that we don't, you don't test at Golang level. You test at
Yeah.
Kubernetes level. You're testing features. You're not testing
Yeah.
the code.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah. It's another big topic. That one and the art community development, how we can encourage more participation, pair programming, things like that. I will make them as a topic for the next call. Thank you so much, everyone. Really good call today. Have a good one.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Paula. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, all.
Thank you.